Wednesday, July 1st. I'm Rem.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, we talk about how to make anime cons better, aka what I learned about Otakon from PAX.
Let's do this.
So today, right, I come out of work, and I'm walking across the street to Grand Central, and I see two women, and they're standing, like, kind of in front of the sliding doors. So I had to kind of go around them to get out. And as I walk past them, I hear the one woman, who looks very, very frustrated and angry, say to the other one, "Just try the fucking things on." And I look, and she's holding a pair of sunglasses.
Oh my God.
So I stop, and I watch them, and the other one's like, "I don't wanna." And then they both look at me, like, "What?" So I just walked away. But
Oh, you should have been like,
I had a
They
train to
live?
catch in like 30 seconds.
oh, you know there was going to be like Roddy Piper was going to show up right then. You know he was on his way.
I know he was.
How could you not wait to see him?
Man, that
You
is
could have given
still...
him a high five.
I mean, I actually had seen the South Park episode first, and people kept saying, "Yeah, that's the same fight as from They Live." And I was like, "What? They Live? What's that?" And then...
We watched They Live.
And then
I was
learned-
like, oh, They Live is that thing. Obey.
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 But that amused me for like 10 minutes after I got on the train.
Man, I don't want to put the sunglasses on. Oh my God.
There's no way... Like, they did not look like they were having fun, so there is no way that they were joking. Maybe one of them knew the other one was pissed off anyway and was messing with them because they knew they didn't know, but I don't know. I'll never know. It's, just
Maybe
like,
maybe we should start a thing where people go out. You know how they do the
that's
improv.
a good idea.
Improv everywhere. You know they'll go and do like a flash mob here, like a statue one.
But it's always
right?
like a big flash mob. You got to get
Right.
more like some
we
of those
should do
early...
something where it's like two people will just appear in a place and reenact a movie scene.
Well, here's the thing to do. Remember, even Mega 64 used to do that with the video games, but they'd have like one or two people instead of a flash mob. But it was still kind of... It was very obvious what they were doing. You got to do it so subtle that half the time, no one around you will even notice. But it's all worth it for that one person who goes home and goes, "Yeah, I
You
think..."
could do no. I'm thinking more. Just pick a scene from a movie. It could be a small one like that, right? Where suddenly two people suddenly break out into a fight in an alley somewhere, right? Or you could even do a big one, right? Like get a whole bunch of kung fu people, right? And go to a crowded...
Scott, here's the reason why we should not do the fight ones.
Why not?
Remember at RIT when we had all those Shinai and Bokto and we were all fighting with each other outside of Gracie's at like 2 a.m. and campus safety comes around the corner, not guns blazing, but flashlight blazing. "What the hell's going on? Oh my God!" And we all stop. We're like, "What? Just a fight? No biggie."
No, but if you had a movie kung fu fight just suddenly bust out somewhere and it was all awesome,
No,
like
the key
like
is
a
the
Jackie
subtle,
Chan movie.
The key to anything like that is the subtlety, to where someone is not quite sure if it was a joke, if it was intentional. It's one of the... You got to leave them thinking and wondering about it. Something that will bother them for the rest of their lives.
You can have a guy, or you can, get someone to dress up as like Arnold, right? And then get a kid and they'll drive a motorcycle down the street and get a guy dressed up as T-1000 running like behind them.
No,
and just drive down the street like that.
See, better just get a guy who looks just like the T-1000 and have him just run like all around New York City like that.
Nah, it's not. People might not get it.
See, that's the point. That's the best prank.
You gotta do it where it's obvious. The people will see it.
No. My case in point is it's a good night for flying.
That's no good.
That's the best. Anyway,
No.
It's anime day. We got to talk about anime, but with any talk of anime in July must come talk of Otakon, because we used to do, this time last year, we would do a show every night. So every week we had an anime show. We'd run out of stuff to say. Otakon's done more stuff every 2 weeks than we can keep up with.
Well, the thing is, this is sort of obvious. I never really realized it before, but like, the conventions have to announce all their shit before pre-reg ends. Otherwise, what's the point, right?
Yes.
It's like you got. I never really thought about that before.
But they do. I mean, pre-reg for Otakon ends at midnight tonight.
Oh shit!
And they announced the last couple of crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case you weren't already planning to go. Otakon, This might be, in terms of just star power, the best Otakon ever.
No, I don't think it has the musical star power.
Well, no, all right. Aside from you, I mean, they don't have Yoko Kanno. Laruku, well, Vamps is playing a concert, but not at Otakon.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
The
That's
day
why.
before Otakon.
Yep.
Close enough.
It doesn't count.
But I mean, they got some big name people coming here now.
Big name anime people.
Yeah. Fred showed. I want to go bother him
Oh, we got to bother him so much.
because we did not appreciate the resource we had at RIT, and we did not appreciate how cool he was back then.
Well, we didn't see him at RIT, but he was at RIT before we were at RIT.
Yes, he was, and
the
in the-
previous, the anime club years before us got him to come to RIT.
Yep.
You know, and we were like, oh, some guy came to RIT.
Because we'd always
in the
see
past,
in the
big
Anime
deal.
Club library that all the VHSs of fan subs, and in there was like this 10 tapes of like Fred Schutt lectures from RIT, and we just ignored it.
Yeah.
Had no idea what it was.
Yeah, no one appreciated, and now it's too late. We know better.
Yep. They've got Yukata Yamamoto, you know. Oh, you didn't watch Haru yet, did you?
I watched like 2 episodes.
That's one of the better shows that came out.
Okay, that's all you got to say.
Well, there are a lot more guests, but if you don't care, I can just move on.
Well, you asked me if I knew someone. I told you I didn't know who they were.
All right. But they got Ishiguro, so I'm sure Scott Johnson is going to be all about this.
That's an important person. Very
Yes.
important. Directed all the greats.
Like Habsburg's Dying,
Yeah.
Habsburg's Dying 2, The Revenge.
You know, Macross. I mean, he's been at conventions before. You know, it's not like he's never been to an anime convention in the U.S. before. He's been to quite a few. This is just his first Otakon appearance, which is pretty big. I think it's also the first time I've been at the same con that he's been at, if I'm not mistaken.
The thing is, only in the last few years, I've paid a lot more attention to the guests. I
Well,
used to just not pay attention so much.
Well, because we didn't know who they were.
Well, also because, I was busy doing a lot more stuff at conventions. I mean, remember last year, we had that Artist Alley thing and like 6 panels. We're not doing that anymore.
I mean, remember when we went to the Anime Next and Rintaro was there?
Oh my God.
And we just sort of walked. We didn't plan on seeing him. We were like, oh, nothing else going on. And there was like no one.
That was real sad, though.
It was.
I don't know what was sadder, the fact that there was almost no one there, or the fact that the few people who were there could not think of a single interesting question to ask him.
Yeah. Not us either. Not in those days.
But, I mean, they've got Inoue, and she was the voice of Baldandy.
Mm.
Yeah. But, I guess we're petering out here. I guess no banter, nothing to say about Otakon.
What do I have to say? There's awesome
All right.
people's going. It's Otakon. It's going to be
All right, well,
Otakon.
this you'll be excited about. Remember last year, they had the Otakon animation, the opening animation done by Madhouse.
Yep.
And it was crazy awesome. And they had trouble, contractually. They couldn't show it a bunch of times. They couldn't, release it out on the internet.
Yep. They only showed it 2 times.
Well, for this year,
Or 3 times. I think once a day.
Otakon 2009. They showed it officially 3 times, but I believe it was accidentally shown 4 times, but they will deny that.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, for Otakon 2009, there's going to be a new opener to Otakon, done again by Madhouse.
Oh, shit. Well, isn't Murayama coming again?
Yes.
He goes to Otakon all the time. Madhouse fucking loves Otakon.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the Jim Voles being the freaking deity of Japanese guest relations.
I think Madhouse just loves Otakon.
Otakon is the best anime convention in the U.S., hands down.
Yeah.
I mean, what, Anime Expo?
Which we've never been to, so we have no idea.
Katsucon?
We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But, quote, the inspiration is, once again, the much-loved Daikon 4 openings.
Of course. I mean, back in the day, right, there were opening animations to conventions, and that's sort of, Daikon 3, Daikon 4, and many others that are not so good and thus were not remembered or kept. But, so it's like that's sort of something that went away, and Otakon has decided to bring it back, and I think it's a very good thing they brought it back. And I think other conventions that are perhaps not big enough to get Madhouse to make them animated openers should go out of their way to make their own. And, there are plenty of conventions that have the resources to do their own. I'm looking at you, New York Anime Festival, New York Comic Con, PAX East West.
Nah.
Do something.
Well, PAX has the keynote, at least.
PAX, they should make a game that is the PAX game. And it could just be like a little, fakakta tiny game. But they should make, the PAX 07 game. And it could be like, just something you download or something, tiny like that. All
right, some terrible game?
No, it'd just be like a little cute PAX game. It could be like just a really small, clever thing, and just put it out there. Hand out CDs or, let people walk up and download something. I don't know.
Yep. But one thing I can say about Otakon too, they put up a nice announcement about pre-reg that I will summarize here. Don't line up early on Thursday. There's no point. You will get your badge. There is nothing else to do. After you get your badge, go home.
It's first of all, right? Well, people aren't going to go home after they get their badge because they want to hang out. That's right. That's why they're there Thursday.
Yeah,
right?
That's
and
fine,
two,
but don't hang out right outside the exit. Seriously.
Well, that's true. I have talked to people at the front of lines at Thursday Otakons who have waited there all day, and I asked them, why did you wait here all day?
One guy has ever had a good answer.
Well, and all they say is that they're there for the experience. They like to be in the line. They want to wait.
See, here, all I agree
There's
with
no
that.
one waiting in that line who doesn't want to.
Here's where I disagree slightly. At the front of the line, that is true. I mean, the people at the front of that line are definitely there for that sort of thing. But go about 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people further out into the line. There are hot, pissed off, dehydrated fanboys. They want their badge.
Well, if you just, the badge, the early badge line opens at what time?
5 p.m.
5 p.m.
And we'll end at 11.
It ends at 11. If you show up at that line at 7 or 8, you're just going to walk right in, get your badge, and walk right out without waiting in line.
Unless you're a panelist or a member of the press.
Right. But, so there's no reason, unless you like waiting in line, don't get in that line before 7 or 8 o'clock. If you just want your badge Thursday, just show up in Baltimore sometime Thursday. So before 7 or 8 p.m. and around 7 or 8 p.m., you could even go there at 10 p.m. if you have such good timing. You'll definitely just walk right in, get your badge, and walk right out with no problem, no waiting, no nothing. And it'll be a totally awesome experience if you hate waiting in line. So don't wait in line if you don't want to. If you do like waiting in line, show up early because there will be people there to wait in line with you. And why would you miss out on a minute of waiting in line that you love?
And, of course, we've said this before, but we will be at Otakon with much of the front row crew, but not the entire front row crew. Many people have bailed, some for lame reasons, some for amazing reasons.
Yeah, but there are people who are not front row crew who will be there, many podcasters and other internet peoples you like.
Who cares about them?
And many other people who listen to this podcast, including you and others.
We are only doing 3 panels, but they are 3 high-quality panels.
Oh, yeah, isn't the pre-schedule out? I didn't look at it.
I didn't look at it either.
I forgot. I have to look at that.
Yeah, but anyway, we're doing Beyond D&D, Anime You Should See, and Know Your Creators, and I'll just say one last time.
You better make sure those are on the schedule.
Do not go to our Anime You Should See if you have already been to it. We have not added anime to the Anime You Should See list. That is not the panel for you if you're someone who has seen anime. This is for people who don't know what Cowboy Bebop is.
Yep.
Which is about half of Otakon as far as I can tell.
Well, it was half of Anime Boston.
Yeah. It was, well, we did a panel like that at Otakon before and people hadn't seen anything.
It's very sad, some of these situations.
I still don't know what to do about it.
And it's so weird, like the kind of mixes you'll get. Like at Kineticon, there was someone who actually knew what the Atano Circus was.
Yeah, one person.
But you'll get it, and that was a tiny room with only a few people. But at like another convention, you get this giant room full of people. 0 people know what it is. It's like, what happened here? I don't know what's going on.
But we will announce, since we only have our 3 panels, and we chose not to get an Artist Alley table this year, we will have some sort of crew get-together, probably on Saturday, but I can't promise that yet. Twitter and the forum and our website will tell you where that is.
Yeah, and, such. We have a nice get-together, maybe out on the patio at the tables,
but
depending on the weathers.
I do want to mention this briefly. This is not, it's kind of breaking news out there, but we are consolidating all of the full information before we report on this in any capacity, but...
No, let's just report on it.
Well...
We got enough. We got some information.
We have a lot, but I guess I will qualify everything we're about to say by saying that this is primarily information gleaned from voyeurism, secondhand sources, and hearsay. However, it is secondhand sources that I trust, and hearsay that has been reliable in the past. I don't know what's going on with Katsucon next year.
Yeah, Katsucon... they moved to a new hotel. There's some.
Well, they moved back to Crystal City.
Right, but it's not the same hotel. It's that they were in Crystal City before. It's like the Gaylord something, right?
But basically, a while ago, a bunch of high-level staffers resigned, kind of out of the blue, and we're staff. Well, we were staff for Katsucon, so we were watching everyone. And you're like, all right, we got to get new staffer for this, new staffer for that, and everything still seemed to be working out because the main reason we always went to Katsucon was Video Katsu. If nothing else went right at that con, the video game staff was basically like an entirely separate staff, completely independent of Katsucon.
That was completely awesome and basically had its own gaming convention within Katsucon.
Like, those guys had their shit together. That was some of the best game. Like, even
Video
PAX,
gaming.
Like, they were on par with PAX enforcers of that.
Yeah, I
video
mean,
gaming.
PAX is, to be perfectly honest, you go to PAX, and PAX is like a big video game convention, right? But the actual video game playing at PAX is less than the video game playing that goes on at Katsucon, or at least did go on at Katsucon. I think PAX had overall, less actual, consoles to play. They had their system of checking games out was kind of nice.
Yep.
But, there were less games to play at PAX and less people playing games in the official game playing areas. And Katsucon also always had Videotopia with like all the awesome arcade machines. PAX really didn't have arcade machines at all, really.
Yep. But the classic arcade games really did it. But those people, like, I got to give my hats off to Video Katsu. You guys made Katsucon for us amazing every year that we went.
All two of them, except for and one I was sick.
Well, I went for 2 previous Katsucons before you started going, but
Yeah. I went to one Katsucon and one sick Katsucon.
those Katsukons prior to going with, in the official capacity of Geeknights are a drunken haze primarily. But basically, from what we can tell, the staff of Katsucon may or may not have imploded, and I believe most of the video game staff has resigned en masse, citing various disagreements as to how the con should be run. And so many people have emailed us about this within Katsucon, and half the people are like, please, keep this anonymous, but here's what's going down.
Yeah, basically, drama.
So-
Oh no.
A lot of people asked us why we didn't go to Katsucon last year, and there were a lot of reasons, but the early rumblings of this were the beginning of it. And now that the rumblings are almost peeking out to the surface, now you know. So if any of you have any insight to provide into what happened to the Katsucon staff and what's going to happen at Katsucon next year, we would love to hear it, and we will not say your name if you tell us not to.
Yeah. The thing is, right, it's sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy of, whoever Katsucon, I guess, still exists, it's still going to go on, in some capacity, at least as it stands now, right? And there's still people who are working on it and working hard, to make it happen, and they want it to be good.
Every staffer.
But by having this drama and by announcing this drama, it's sort of like, well, now people are going to avoid Katsucon thinking it's going to be bad. Thus, it will be bad. Thus,
But at the same time, if I have reason to believe that a con will be bad, it's not like as a journalist I can hide that from you.
That's true.
I mean, how bad would you feel if I was like, yeah, Katsucon's coming up, it's awesome, and then you went and I knew that, it was having trouble on the back end?
Yeah, basically, go to Katsucon if you live close and it's not too much trouble.
And, continue to listen because as we figure out more about what's happening.
Yeah, there could be, these kind of things swing. I could be getting on the show in a few weeks being like, Katsucon had a sudden reversal. All the shitty people left. All the good people came back. It's a miracle. It could happen.
Yep. And also, obviously, if any Katsucon staff are listening, let us know what's going on because we like Katsucon and we would love to help Katsucon continue to be awesome, but you can't hide the drama that's happening. It is spilling out at the seams.
Yeah. It's like we want Katsucon to be good, but we got to call it like we see it. It's not doing good.
But anyway, things of the day.
Oh, shit.
What do you got for me?
What do I have? Well, do you know Cliffhanger?
That terrible movie?
I never saw that movie, though I do know it exists. Because I remember
That
ads
movie was
for it
hyped
back in the day.
like crazy. I never actually saw it.
Wasn't it like what was it about? A guy rock climbs and falls down and kills himself?
Something like that. I don't know.
Rocky was in it, right?
I don't actually know. I just remember seeing ads for it all the time, and the more ads I saw, the less I wanted to see the movie.
Right. Well, there was actually a video game, an arcade video game from back in the day called Cliffhanger, 2 words, right? And I did not know about this game until very recently. This game was, even though it's very, very old, this game was a Laserdisc game. If you've ever played Dragon's Lair, you know what a Laserdisc game is. Basically, the way these arcade games
It's
work.
an anime that ends every 5 seconds unless you hit up.
Right. Basically, you had an arcade machine, and inside the arcade machine was, of course, a television. and a bunch of, Laserdisc videos, right? And what happened is these Laserdisc videos would play, and you would have to push. You had a joystick and some buttons, and you'd have to push the joystick and buttons in the right way with precise timing in order to get the video to continue. Otherwise, it's sort of, it's like if you don't push up and push the button right now at this exact precise timing, and if you do it, he'll swing the sword and kill the dragon. If you don't, then the dragon will breathe fire and the video's over, and you have to put in more quarters to start again, right? And that was how a Laserdisc game worked. This particular Laserdisc game called Cliffhanger, right, as released in the U.S., was pretty much, played the exact same way as Dragon's Lair, except Dragon's Lair was an original, creation for video game purposes, This, they took footage from various Lupin the Third movies, especially Castle of Cagliostro, but also Mamo.
This is that stupid game where you'd have the scene where they're running away when they stole the goat bills in the beginning of the movie, and it's run, jump, run, jump.
Yep, and they took all this Lupin footage, primarily from Cagliostro, but also from others. They didn't call it Lupin; they called it other shit, Cliffhanger or whatever. And it was a Laserdisc game, just like Dragon's Lair, using this Lupin footage. And I really kind of want to play it just to see what the deal is. But I know it's probably really bad with some really bad voice acting over the Lupin, if there is any voice acting at all.
I'm sure there's some way to play it. We will have to investigate.
But this gives me an idea, though, right? If you could take footage from a bunch of anime that no one in the U.S. had heard of at the time, or very few people, still very few people know what Lupin is in the U.S., and make a video game out of it, why don't we take some footage from some animes, put it together, and just make some, games out of it?
You could make some Flash games.
You could just take some, who knows what. But, make Laserdisc style annoying games.
I hope that doesn't become a trend.
I don't need to make cutscenes for my indie video game. I'll just steal some animes.
So, we this is anime night and manga and comics, but we always often talk about Japanese animation, anime. But there is animation from countries other than Japan.
Yeah, I wish we could sum up the Wednesday with a different wording instead of saying anime, manga, comics. Because on the one hand, right, manga is comics. But you want to put the word manga so people searching for it find you on Google.
Yep.
And two, right, it's like sort of the whole visual arts really is what Wednesday is about. Because there are many, many visual arts that are appeal for the geekeries. And that's sort of what Wednesday is really all about.
But one place where a lot of great animation comes out of, Canada. Canada. So I present to you Christopher Hinton's Black Fly. It's the tale of a man who was
sent...
Isn't it
Black Flies?
Black Fly.
Okay.
A man who was sent up with the survey crew in Ontario to build a power dam.
Wow.
And if you've never been to northern Michigan or Canada or northern Canada, there's a creature, a beast, a foul monstrosity called a black fly.
It's a fly. Bzz.
It is a fly that bites constantly and repeatedly and never stops. Black flies.
Until you kill it.
And there are 1,000 more to replace it.
Yep.
If you strike it down, it will only become more powerful.
Yep.
So, all that aside, we've many times in the past talked about, if we were an anime con, we'd do them.
Your thing of the day's over. That was quick. All right.
We'll do, that's my thing of the day, that animation.
Okay.
The Black Fly.
All right.
Christopher Hinton.
I thought we were going to discuss, I thought we were going to maybe discuss some of how, Canada gives money to people to make animations. That's why there's all these great Canadian animation bits out there.
No, I'm just going to leave it out there.
Okay.
I mean, we used Space Wolf before. We didn't talk about that.
I don't think Space Wolf was Canadian.
I think the guy who made it was Canadian.
Possibly.
I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a Canadian, government paid for production.
I don't think so, but I think he happened to be Canadian.
Man, remember back in the day, Nickelodeon would show a bunch of the Canadian bits, and then Cartoon Network would show a bunch of them. Back when neither
Cartoon
one
Network
shows any.
Back when Cartoon Network showed cartoons.
Yeah, I know, right?
But we've often in the past brought up, we do things this way if we were at an anime convention or a gaming convention or blah, 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 blah. And then after we went to PAX, we came back and had a whole new perspective on everything. And we talked a lot about how great PAX was and how every other convention sucked as a result. And
But remember how there was actually there was only one ever hubbub at PAX, at least as far as I know, of the guy who runs those other video game conventions.
that guy is great.
Right, he went to PAX to sort of figure out how they ran the convention and tried to copy them, and it totally didn't work, but they threw him out of PAX because of some who knows what. But I feel sort of like we're doing the same thing. Like we went to PAX and we investigated what they did, and now we're suggesting that people copy it.
Well, but the thing is,
So are we not too dissimilar from that asshole?
well, we're not crazy, at least not in that way.
Yeah.
That guy was crazy. But I think it's more that I had a lot of notions and ideas as to what I thought was wrong with anime conventions and gaming cons, but it's Wednesday. We're just going to talk about anime cons. And I thought I knew how to solve those problems, or at least I thought I knew what I wanted out of the cons, and as a result, obviating the problems.
Mm-hmm.
And going to PAX kind of gave me this different perspective that maybe cons don't have to be in any way like they are now. We can make radical changes, but then it kind of sunk in that PAX was different for reasons other than the way it is run.
Yeah, well, I mean, whenever we, try to solve any world problem, big or small, we always sort of get back to some sort of fundamental, core, unsolvable thing, right? Like, we'll be talking about the government, like, oh, they should do this, oh, should they do this? And eventually we'll get back to, like, well, corruption, can't, oh, there it is. You find some core thing that's at the root, and... with anime conventions and stuff, it'd always be like, well, they're by fans, for fans, most of them anyway, and they're all volunteer, so, you can't do this and you can't do that, and all these great ideas you can have, it doesn't matter, this is root problem, and we can never figure out how to solve that root problem because it is what it was. You couldn't turn the convention to be profit, you couldn't, hire a bunch of people, that just wasn't feasible, so all the things that require that are also not feasible, and it cascades downwards. So you sort of just accept the things are the way they are because, people already made it the best they could, and the core problem that would allow them to change anything is unsolvable.
Yep. And there was also the issue I realized after we went to Anime Boston that we started we always went to the same few conventions every year when we were just fans or doing like our one panel. And then we suddenly started going to a whole ton of cons, and that killed us. So then we backed it off. And then we kind of just went to the same cons every year, and it wasn't until we went to PAX that we broke it up. Like, that was when we went to something different for a change.
Yep.
And then on the heels of that, we went to Anime Boston, and after Anime Boston, I realized that my view of cons was highly skewed by the fact that my sample size was basically Kineticon, Otakon, Katsucon, which are all very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Otakon is pulling away from the pack more and more, and Kineticon is being more and more of a not AnimeCon, but a Genericon, which I think actually suits us very well, to be honest.
Yep, I think that's what Kineticon should be.
Yep. I'm actually really excited about Kineticon this year, which is the weekend after Otakon.
2 weekends. So there's a weekend after Otakon that nothing happens, and the weekend after that, Kineticon.
And again, of course, we're going to be there doing all the panels
Yeah.
in one room.
There's going to be a room that is the Rim and Scott room, well, the Geeknights front row crew room.
It's about 50% me and Scott, 50% the rest of the crew.
So even if the rest of Kineticon is poop, which I guarantee it won't be because the tabletop gaming there is excellent.
See, if we could just take the tabletop gaming from Kineticon and merge it with the tabletop gaming from PAX and just have Videokatsu run gaming at PAX.
It'd be the ultimate game con.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so if you're worried that Kineticon's going to be, if it's not worth going or worth going, you should go, because in worst case scenario, you can play tabletop games, play RPGs, and hang with us. We're going to be doing a panel pretty much every minute of the con, and you will not need to worry if the rest of the con is good or bad. And you know what? There's a chance that some of the other things at the con will be good, even if some of them are bad. So guaranteed, because of us, you could think of it as like there's a Geeknights convention inside of Kineticon. You could think about it that way.
Wow, every year when we talk about conventions, we always kind of, I think it's ever since.
We're too honest.
Ever since
we're not gonna lie to our peoples.
We talked about how excited we were for WarioWare Wii before it came out. No one ever let us live that down, so we're always very guarded in our opinions now. Yeah, Katsucon might suck. I don't know. Yeah, Otakon might be cool. We don't know. Oh my god.
It's better than See, it's good though, because now that builds a trust with the listeners. They know that we're not just shills, right? There are other people out there, podcasters and other types in various media, where like if someone's a sponsor, like they will will never bad talk them, or if they have a business partnership with someone, they'll always say they're great, even if they don't really like them, that much, at least they'll keep their mouth shut, and we, if someone's a friend of ours, or we have a relationship with someone, if there's something bad, we'll say it, and I think because people trust us in that way and we live up to that trust, that will, our listeners will stick with us and know that we're awesome.
That is part of the reason why I did bring up the Katsucon thing at this early stage, because one, it means there's enough time for Katsucon to fix things, but two...
Yeah, Katsucon, that's one thing to Katsucon's credit, right? They're having all this drama now, but their convention is a ways out. It's in, February?
Yep.
So most conventions, at this point in time, over 6 months before the convention, they wouldn't be saying anything at all. There would be no communication between any of the people whatsoever at most conventions. So even though the communication at Katsucon is negative, it's communication, and that is a positive, a huge positive.
Yep. The fact that anyone's even talking is
that
good.
That shows you that Katsucon had its act together.
But two, way back when we went to Kineticon, and it wasn't so great years and years ago, and we did a show basically lambasting the con, it had all these problems.
Yeah, we still go to it every year.
Yeah, well, because the con chair and a lot of the staffers emailed us, and they're like, you know what, you're right. Put up or shut up. You want to help us fix it? And we were like, hells yeah. And Kineticon has been our standby con ever since.
Yep.
So I'm hoping the same thing will happen with
It also
Katsucon.
helps it really close.
Yeah, I'll pretty much go to any con that's within an hour of my house.
Well, we never go to those ones that are up at the colleges in Poughkeepsie, like the non-con.
Well, we went to Gaming for Hope.
Twice.
Yeah.
We didn't go to non-con, though.
No, we didn't.
Okay.
I was lying. What do you want?
All right, anyway.
So, I think we should just start. Basically, we're going to try to aggregate all of the complaints and suggestions and commentary we've had about the meta of anime conventions and just anime conventions into one show and pull it all together rather than having, one mention in every show for a year that no one can really pull into a coherent plan forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the rationale. The real reason we're doing this show... Scott hasn't watched Giant Robo yet. I haven't watched all of Galaxy Express yet. And,
You're never going to watch all of Galaxy Express.
I will.
I'm on episode 60-something. It's 112, I think.
Scott, watch all of Sailor Moon and we'll talk.
It's not going to happen.
Not that bad a show.
Not that going to happen.
It's really not that bad a show.
Yeah, neither is
I have watched
a lot of things. It doesn't mean I'm going to watch that many episodes.
I've watched worse shows longer, so...
All right, well, watch Gao Gai Gar then.
Maybe I should start in the middle of Gao Gai Gar.
Like people say.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Anyway, so I think we should start with the simplest or the least controversial or the obvious and then work our way to the crazy. Because the simplest and most obvious that Anime Boston already does, so we know this one works, have the cosplay feedback be opposite the real con feedback on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, you go to a feedback panel, right? And it's good to have a feedback panel because, basically... if people give you feedback by email or internets, it gets lost. People don't check it, whatever.
Well, two, having the feedback at the con gives the people who are pissed off and have a legitimate concern, or not, that immediate venting, which will, and often they'll feel a lot better about coming to the con next year, knowing that a person listened to them and said, we'll work on it.
Yep. I mean... other conventions, professional ones, they don't have freaking feedback. It's like, what are you talking? Feedback panel. Get your, face out of here.
PAX ended, and everyone walked out. And the police were behind, the guards were behind the last straggler saying, get out.
Yep.
And that was it.
That was it. There was no feedback. It's like, they don't need you to tell them that they're awesome.
And after the last Otakon, we finally said, look, get rid of con feedback. No professional cons have it, and it's just cosplay people and no one else. And Anime Boston just split them, which I think is great because I feel like the cosplay people do need a forum like this.
Well, I think what it is at a fan-run con that is by fans for fans, you sort of have more of a right. It's sort of weird, right? You think you would actually have less of a right to feedback because basically everyone's volunteering and just doing this for you. So who are you to tell them that they did something wrong? But at a professional con, you're paying for that. You should be able to feedback a ton, right? It's like you can complain about software you paid for, but you can't complain about open source software. But at the same time, it's like, a fan-run con, like Otakon, you're technically a member. This is like you're in this group. You have, you're in this just as much as everyone else is. It's not like they're providing a service for you. It's like you're in this with everyone else and you have a say.
Well, part of it, too, is that fan cons, unlike professional cons, have the very clear put up or shut up where you're coming to the con. You're not different from the staffers. You're just not staffing.
Yep.
You're there in the same capacity as those people, but if you have a complaint, join up and fix it. We'll get to why that doesn't work as well as it should. I have a lot of reasons as to why.
Yeah,
But
so feedback. If you put the Masquerade feedback, which is the majority of the feedback, on its own, A, the Masquerade runners will be there to hear it, right?
Yep.
And B, those Masquerade people won't bother the rest of the people, because really, the Masquerade at an anime convention is separate from the rest of the convention.
it's basically a completely separate event. I mean, the people who are doing that tend to be there for that. And their whole group of friends will like everyone they know has a skit. And then they all go and watch each other's skits. And they all go to all the stuff.
And they do the cosplay chess, and they do, right? And that's basically, it's a convention within a convention. You know, it's there are some conventions out there that have tracks, right? So like you go to a tech convention and there'll be like, say, you know, different tracks for different, you know, technologies. So everyone who wants to learn about X goes to this set of events, and anyone who wants to learn about Y goes to these set of events. And anime conventions and geek conventions definitely don't have tracks in this sort of structured way where you pick a set of events and go to them. But what they do, you know, they sort of have these virtual tracks of, you know, hey, if you're into this, you know, then you're going to do these things. You know, some people just go and they do the video game room the whole con, and it's sort of a track. You know, they do all the tournaments. And some people, they go and they do all the cosplay stuff. They do, you know, the photos and the show and the whole thing. That's a track in a way.
Actually, later in this, we'll get to tracks, because I have a lot of ideas about tracks and anime cons. It's one thing that is there de facto, but not de jure.
Yes, exactly. You summed up what I was saying before in many fewer words.
Yes.
That were all French.
Latin.
Whatever. It's the Latin language.
But that's a really good example of, you know, one of those things where originally our idea was, yeah, get rid of it, it's stupid. But then going to Anime Boston, we saw, no, there's a better way.
Yes. Okay.
So what else should we change other than the demographic? We'll save that for last.
Well, I don't know. I mean, one thing is definitely it's tough to figure out the scheduling of panels. You know, like we've been trying to look at this, and it's like, you know, some they leave the gaps in between the panels,
like
and
PAX, where literally there is a panel and then a panel-sized hole, and then a panel and a panel-sized hole.
And some of them stagger the panels, and some of them line them up next to each other, and some of the.
But one thing that almost no anime con does is have gaps between panels. And no anime con has effectively been able to get people out of the rooms in a professional manner such that the next panelists are just ready to go exactly on time.
Yeah, well, I mean, at most conventions, right, it's like the problem is different. For example, at Otakon, right, you have a situation where a panel room will be full, the next panel is popular, and people are waiting in line for it outside the room. So you have to empty out this room and then let the people in for the next panel.
But
yet,
now
Otakon also has all the panels scheduled right on top of each other with no gaps. So they need the gap.
Well, more so, too. There's the very serious problem of, I mean, there are two ways to look at this. On one hand, people will go to a panel they don't care about because it is in the room of the panel that comes next that they want to see.
Yep.
And two, there are people who want to go to two panels that happen to be next to each other in the same room.
Yep.
And there is no elegant solution to any of that.
Nope.
Except tracks, but we'll get to that again. But I think you really have to do panel scheduling based entirely on the specific con and the specific needs of the specific con. There's no
like in Anime
solution.
Boston, you never need to clear out the panel room. You know, there's plenty of seats. You know, people just come in and come out as they please. You don't have this problem. And actually, at Anime Boston, every panel I saw, and even though they were stacked on top of each other, they all ended on time. Nobody stayed too long or anything like that.
But Otakon has the problem where there are a ton of panels where you will not fit everyone who wants to see that panel into the room.
Yep.
You have to clear the room out. Otakon specifically really needs to have the half-hour break between every single panel.
And the thing is, then you've got a situation of quantity and quality, you know? By stacking all the panels up on top of each other, you can get the quantity in there, and you can get something for everybody. If you put all those gaps in, unless you have more panel rooms, there's going to be less panels. And if there are less panels, you're going to have to give some of them the axe. And what do you do? Now you've got all this time periods, right, with fewer panels occupying people. all the people who are coming to the convention, there's less for them to do. There's going to be more time where they're wandering about doing nothing.
Which Otakon has the huge problem with just because the BCC can barely contain it. So.
Yeah, but other convention, it's a problem at Otakon. It's not really a problem in other places so much at all. I don't know.
Yeah, but it really depends on the con. But for very large cons like Otakon...
Well, actually, PAX did have the room emptying problem, but, where the rooms every panel would completely fill up, and they'd have to empty it out and let all new people in, and then it would fill up, and not everyone would see the panel. But they had huge gaps between the panels, and they had less quality and less quantity and more quality. So it wasn't a problem.
Now, one thing I would do if I'm going to schedule things back to back, or even with short gaps between them, is have tracks of related panel stuff at anime cons. Maybe even have recommended itineraries in the con book. Like, if you're the mech guy, here are all the mech panels.
I don't think you could logistically go so far as to have people register for individual panels.
No, not registering for individual panels.
I didn't say that either, but I'm just saying I don't think you could do that. That'd be ridiculous. But you definitely, what you have to do is when you're scheduling the panels, you have to think really, really hard about the different types of fans and say, okay, if there was a fan of this, right, this kind of person is probably going to go to these panels. So don't put them next to each other at the same time.
Or put them next to each other, one after the other, with no room clear, and note somehow in the schedule that these two are a block, and that if you want to be guaranteed to see the second one, you have to go to the first one.
Yeah, if there was someone to mark on the schedule, see the thing, would people really get it? You could mark in the schedule, these are times when the room is cleared out, these are times when the room is not cleared out.
Well, here's the problem. Every con that does room clearings does that, but very rarely do they actually follow their room clearing schedule consistently.
Or rarely do they enforce the room clear thoroughly.
More importantly, they will not schedule enough time to clear the room.
That is also true.
But I feel like Otakon should have a simple solution, straight up. There should be a half-hour stagger between every single panel except for linked track panels.
Yep.
So you might have two panels in a row.
And if that means
no
less panels, well, you can either get more panel rooms or just, you'll have better quality and no one will really complain so much.
Well, I have a solution to that too. But before we get to that, talking about tracks, I think cons like Otakon should have a section in the con book, maybe not on the, fold-out schedule, but in the con book of have 10 different personalities, like staffers, whoever, who look at the schedule and pick their suggested track.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'm Joey Jojo, the Mecha Man. I like Fist of the North Star and I'm My Goddess and mech shows. So
I was like, I'm the Mecha Man. I like shonen fighting and shonen drama.
Well, just, you make, like in the old PC Gamer and all those magazines, you have personalities.
Yep.
Either fictitious or real, doesn't matter. And then you say, if I were that person, I would go to these events and have a full weekend-long con schedule, event, even with, lunch blocked out. And have, 10 of these in a special section in the back of the con book. And you could get fans to do this for you if you release the schedule early enough.
And also, when you're crafting these, craft them such that, right, if, say you have 10 of them, right? Just pretend, obviously it's not going to work out this way ever. Just pretend that 10% of the convention picked each one, right? Thus adding up to 100%. Craft them in such a way that if that were the case, the traffic flow and all those other factors would come in line and be awesome.
That is impossible.
I know it's impossible, but you should keep those sorts of things in mind when crafting.
See,
you're obviously never going to get it perfect.
I don't know.
But
I feel like
it doesn't hurt to think about it.
See, I've having scheduled one room for the entirety of a convention, I have decided that level of planning is currently impossible for anime cons.
You just have to think hard about it. If you have enough time, you can do it.
There aren't enough resources.
Just one person just to sit there and think and look at it.
I just think for a con like Otakon specifically, the much better solution, really, go all out. Publish the schedule for panel, or the whole con schedule, either early to the staff, or if you have holes in the schedule where you won't have it ready in time, then, kind of wing it and leave gaps. And there are a bunch of ways to do this, but either have a contest to create the schedule for an individual person, the Mecha Man itinerary, or just have dedicated staffers do it.
Yeah, be like, Scott's suggested convention schedule, Rim's suggested. Maybe we should make, go to get different conventions and then just post like our suggested schedules.
Yeah.
Rim suggested and Scott.
In fact, even to start, for cons that can't get this done early enough to print in the con book, put it online whenever you can, make a big deal about it, point people toward it in the forum and everything, and then print out, the final
I'll tell you
deadline.
what, I'm going to go look at the Otakon pre-schedule, and I'm going to post my suggested schedule in the Front Row Crew forum.
I will post mine as well. We'll start this, and
If I was at Otakon and I wanted, and I'm going to assume A, I'm going to Otakon, B, I'm not doing any panels. I'm only going to them.
see, we're ourselves.
Yeah, C, I'm myself. And D, I'm going to want to do a convention thing at every moment. So I'm going to put Artist Alley in my schedule. I'm going to put video game in the schedule, but I'm never going to leave like an empty time where I'm just chilling out because I paid for Otakon and I'm going to do something at every moment possible, So
I just think this is a great idea.
yeah, so let's post our schedules, our virtual schedules that we're not actually going to follow, but our suggested schedules.
Now, in terms of panel rooms and needing more panel rooms if you stagger the panels, cons need to either get rid of the video showing rooms, at least the generic ones, or completely redo them.
Yeah, I mean, other conventions that aren't anime conventions don't really have video showing rooms.
Well,
they might have a theater that shows like special events, like at a Comic-Con.
No, what a lot of cons will have is they'll have showing rooms, but those rooms are special. Like they show, like they'll have just weird stuff. Like here's a bunch of 80s TV shows, and then we're showing Rocky Horror, and then whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, look at the New York Comic Con, right? They have a theater, and in that theater, they show special Hollywood shit that is for the con, and some of it you even have to pay for, and that's what they do. They don't have, like, showing rooms like, yeah, we've just got, like, 5 video screens, and these 5 little theaters come in and just sit down and watch at your, leisure. They don't have that shit.
Now, very specifically, again, I'll just keep using Otakon because it's the easiest example.
Well, I think it's because Otakon actually has all these things and is so big. And that's, when you've been to it every year since 2002.
Now, we've actually pitched this idea to every con we go to. And, well, it'll probably happen at Kineticon 2010. And it may happen at Anime Boston 2010. We're still, this is all still in planning stage. We have not done this at a convention yet.
So I don't even know if it would work, but I think it would. I'm pretty confident.
But our plan is to, one, drastically cut down on the anime showing rooms and keep the rooms like Otakon's Video 5 consistently amazes me.
Well, Otakon needs to keep the 35 millimeter.
Yes.
Right? They got to keep one big one for the AMVs and such.
Yep.
Right? They got to keep the live action one.
Yep.
And they have to keep one that shows like all the stuff the industry wants to show, because
Yep.
they bring all their new releases and such.
But what I would do for every other anime showing room, the ones that otherwise would just be showing like the first 4 episodes of Haruhi, and then like the Oh My Goddess movie.
And all these rooms are, right? These rooms do serve a purpose at the convention now, which is basically get people out of the hallway and sitting in a seat and out of the way. And all they do is just have video showing constantly, nonstop, just keep showing new videos, and people just keep going in and watching them. And that's all these rooms do. And I guess, it serves a purpose, but there is a significant improvement that could be made to greatly enhance the experience.
Now, it's very simple. All you do is schedule the video room exactly like you would a panel room. So every showing isn't just the name of the show, description of the show. Every showing is an event. So say at 11 o'clock at night on Saturday, we're showing Lupin III, Castle of Cagliostro.
Mm-hmm.
So it's scheduled there, but in the schedule, we block it out for the movie plus like a half hour.
Yep.
And,
Before and after.
And the description shows first, it describes, the Miyazaki, Ghibli, Lupin III movie, a little bit of description of what it is.
Was it Ghibli? I think it was just Miyazaki directed. I don't know if Ghibli
Yeah, I think it was just
produced
Miyazaki. But anyway.
That's a good question. I'll have to look that up.
You show that. You say, this is the movie we're showing. And then you also include information about it, some sort of meta information. But you sell it not as just a showing, but as a panel to where it's going to be emceed. Someone in the room is going to introduce the film, talk about it a bit, maybe take a couple of questions. I'm talking 15 minutes to a half hour of this is what this is why it's important, this is why it's cool, this is why you're here, check it out.
Yeah, I mean, 10 minutes might even be enough depending on how much there is to say about something.
Well, yeah, it depends on the show.
But they could talk about the directors, they could talk about the history of it, the year it came out, any interesting stories that are related to it. Just really tell people, make sure you're explaining to them all this meta information about what they are about to see. And now, first of all, people are going to be a lot more excited about what they're about to watch. They're going to be a lot more interested. They're going to know what to look for. They're going to have a proper context for what they're about to see. They're not going to walk into a room and look for 2 seconds at the screen. Of course, all the people who show up in the middle of the showing are still going to do this. But if someone shows up at the beginning, they're not going to be like, okay, what's this? Look at it and be like, screw this. They're actually going to be like, oh, and they'll know while you're talking to them if this is something they want to watch or not. And if they decide they like it, and odds are they will because you're going to talk it up real big, you're going to get those people to sit in their seat for the whole showing. And then after the showing, you have another block of time before the next one, and you discuss what you just saw with the audience. People ask questions.
Yep. I mean, Ghost in the Shell, you show that at the end. You talk about what that really meant, and you talk a little bit about Shiro versus Oshii.
Yeah, did you guys like that? Did you not like it? What part did you like? What part did you not like? Everyone can start talking it up, and it's a good way for everyone to, connect and all this good stuff.
Now, that is just kind of phase one. That is the fastest, quickest, simplest, least effort, least extra manpower needed way.
Is a person per video room per show. You don't need to sit there for the whole show. It just needs, all you need is a person who knows about each show to go in and talk about it before and after, and that's it. It's real easy.
Now, the next phase of this would be to, in addition to showings like that, because, we do our Anime You Should See panels, so if Otakon had stuff like that, we could say, so if you want to learn more about these shows, Giant Robo's being shown and discussed at 4 o'clock on Friday, and, the Pond the Third's being shown at this time, and Skycrawlers is being shown at this time. Check it all out.
Mm-hmm.
But the next phase is to have panels in the video rooms that are primarily clip-driven, or even commentary. Like, say someone does a showing of Satoshi Kon's Paprika, and it's just they introduce it, they show it, they're done. Later in the con, there's a separate event where maybe they do a Satoshi Kon panel and they show you either clips from all of his movies and talk about them and point stuff out, or they take Paprika that they already showed earlier in the con, kind of show all these different scenes from it, point out what's important, point out the animation, point out stuff in the background, kind of analyze it the way that film professors at like NYU do.
I mean, there are already panels like this that are done in panel rooms, lots of, video heavy panels.
But they're always constrained by time.
And, video in the panel rooms is usually not so great. If you moved all the video heavy panels to the video rooms, it would increase the quality of the video rooms greatly. Right?
It
would free up space in the panel rooms for more panels.
And it also shifts the focus of the panel to show it to me and tell me what I'm seeing, as opposed to show me a little bit and then talk a whole bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And the really cool side effect of this is that I've got a lot of really cool film professors who are all about going to a con like Otakon and doing this.
Yep. And also, there are a lot of panels that could not happen but could happen if this were implemented.
Yes.
There's a lot of impossible, infeasible panels that would now be possible, Like, for example, someone might want to show something like, I don't know, trying to think, something that's, like maybe like memories, right? And, it's not too long, but it's not, super long either. So you could show it, and you could really, talk about like the whole thing. A lot of, if you wanted to discuss, say, magnetic rose in a panel right now, you couldn't really show the whole thing in your panel. It's too much for your panel. It would eat up all the time. And, you basically had to show clips from it, and just keep them short. But if you had a video room and you had a whole bunch of time, like a couple hours, or even just, an hour and change instead of 45 minutes to an hour, you could show the whole thing in the dark, then turn the lights back on, and then discuss it.
Yep. And the best example of this was way back. I visited one of Emily's lectures at NYU. She went to film school in New York City at New York University. And I sat in on a lecture where the previous showing, they had shown all of Citizen Kane. And then in the lecture, they kind of walked through the entire movie showing clips, and then the professor would show the clip, talk about it, maybe show it again. And it was amazing, and I saw Citizen Kane in an entirely different light after that lecture.
Yeah, I took one film class at RIT with this really smart dude, and basically, the class was twice a week, but also once a week we had to go watch a movie in the web. And that's basically, how it went down. 20 classes and 10 movies in 10 weeks.
Now, Otakon, I direct this to you specifically. We can get you real film professors who are also huge anime fans who will probably come to Otakon and do this for you. All you have to do is give us the room and we'll do it. We're all set. We think this is a solid gold idea.
All right.
And even, any con, not just Otakon, even if you can't get the film professors to do these crazy, very well-prepared clip panels, you can have someone at least say who directed a show and why it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And, look at a show like Giant Robo. Giant Robo, if you don't have someone to kind of give you context as to what this is you're about to see, you might look at it and go, this is stupid, and walk out of the room.
Yeah, there's a lot of shows out there that just need information, and most people at the con don't know that information, and they're not going to get it unless someone tells it to them. And they're not going to happen to go to this panel that gives the information and happen to go to this showing that matches up. They're going to walk into the showing, probably in the middle of it and wonder what's going on. But if they happen to walk in, during the big hour block in between two showings where either they're wrapping up the previous showing or discussing the next one, then that's a lot of people who are going to get the proper info and get a whole new appreciation for what they're seeing.
Now, related in a way that I'll explain after we talk about the next idea, anime cons need keynote speeches.
Yeah, I mean, you look at opening and closing ceremonies and anime cons, and basically they shrink them and shrink them and shrink them,
because
and
no one
cares, and they all suck. They mostly suck.
Now, part of the problem there is that most cons, Otakon and Anime Boston handle this better than a lot of cons, and Katsucon's okay at it, but it takes them a long time to get everyone their badges, and people show up late on Friday. So you have this situation where opening ceremonies can't be near the beginning of the convention because no one has a badge yet.
Yep.
At anime cons, you really have to have the opening ceremonies on Saturday. But at PAX, the keynote speech can basically start the con because, one, they mail out the badges.
And two, the con starts late on Friday.
Yep.
It doesn't start early
on
Friday, which kind of sucks. I wish it would start early because they give you the badge already. Start it right away. Come on, we're sitting here. Everyone's here. Start the con.
But at the same time, it kind of works because everyone shows up late on Friday and the con goes until the end on Sunday and everyone stays to the last minute.
Yep.
But we're not talking about PAX. We're talking about anime cons. But the real problem with anime conventions is that they're straying away from anime, and I don't mean this in the Daryl Surratt way.
Well, his gripe is, and I'm sure he won't come. I've talked about this with him and Gerald and other people enough. Is that if you call yourself an anime con, be like, this is Otakon, it's an anime convention. Why do you have non-anime things? You called yourself an anime con. It's basically false advertising. That's their complaint. They like video games. They I don't know how much they like Star Wars and such, but I'm sure they like some
Star Wars.
I'm sure they like some science fiction-y things, right? They like other geekeries, even though they're primarily into anime and manga. It's their complaint is the false advertising situation. If a con says this is an anime and gaming con and then has anime and gaming, they really have no room to complain.
I still disagree with them, and my reasoning primarily is the RIT Anime Club. The most successful, biggest anime clubs are not clubs that are dedicated exclusively to the consumption and learning of and learning about anime and nothing else. They are clubs that collect a whole bunch of people who are related to each other by their mutual like of anime, who do other things together. They hang out with people who like the same thing. They watch anime, but they also have a dodgeball game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the way to go. And that's why anime cons have exploded and are so successful and have basically taken over the so-called geek convention circuit, and how every other geekery is very focused in its tiny little, usually crappy conventions, and yet anime conventions are gigantic.
Yep, I think I can sum that up, is that Otakon, I just said it was an anime convention, but is it really? Otakon is really, technically on paper, convention of otaku generation, right? So, and not the bad podcast, but, yeah, right? So, if you think about it, well, the convention of otaku generation, the people of the otaku generation, they like video games. So the convention for them should have some video games. It makes sense.
Also,
It's not really false advertising.
the fact that you both like Giant Robo and you play some Smash Brothers together. That's what being a member of the anime fan community is all about. And I think that's the best way to do it. But when I say straying away from anime, I mean that more and more of what goes on at most anime conventions is the same thing that we see with the Moe. Well, I don't want to get into all that, but that Vile Spectre of Moe panel summed it up. Anime conventions are kind of this self-feeding cycle now to where the majority of the content is either reflexive or reflective or recycled meta fan content as opposed to content about or really related to the anime.
Oh.
I mean, what was one of the most popular panels at Otakon last year? The Phoenix Wright, skit panel.
Mm-hmm.
And the trouble is that cons try to combat this by having the very intellectual, I'm going to talk about Kazuo Koike and why I think he's the genius of our generation. And no one goes to those panels. They don't even know who Kazuo Koike is.
Yep.
But the way to go about this is you've got to mix the two and have the popular stuff to get people to come to panels and enjoy themselves and really have a good time. But you've also got to just, as a byproduct of everything the con does, point out all the real stuff so that the people who are getting into anime will, they just go to the giant robot smashing the other giant robot showing. They think it's awesome. But they kind of remember, yeah, he said, what was the guy's name who directed that? Hey, where they're showing something else that guy did later. We should check that out too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I got into anime. Really, I went from being just a casual fan to becoming a self-described fan is because I started to pay attention to all this stuff that all the nerds kept talking about. It's more and more AnimeCon stuff doesn't talk about the stuff the nerds talk about. Or they talk about it in a way only nerds would care about.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely, if you look at a lot of the content, it's not actually, it's not even anime, manga, or video game content. It's anime, manga, video game fan content. It's like, you have these fans going to learn about anime, video games, and manga and such, but then they're even taking a step out. They're going to a panel about themselves, for themselves, and whereas the anime and manga and stuff doesn't come into it, And I think really you should just sort of get rid of those things, even if they're popular, or push them to the side, or
not get rid of them.
Mix them, so the same panel, even if it has some of that meta fan content, should also be, in the same panel should also be good stuff.
Well, that's the key, is you don't get rid of it, because that stuff is great. I mean, I really enjoy all that kind of meta stuff. It's fun. The way I think to really address it is to make everything a little more highbrow in general, across the board. And more professional. It's still fan run, but just kind of up the lowest common denominator a little bit, just a tiny bit, and just mention the names of directors and have showings that have a little bit of value add. Don't just say it's an anime con. We have to have anime showings. Say it's an anime con. If we're going to have an anime showing, there should be some value add beyond the fact that it happens to be an anime showing. If we're going to have some fan panel, there should be some value add other than the fact that it is just a fan panel. And with opening ceremonies, a lot of cons, they're really, 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 really lame.
Really lame.
Oh my God.
Like, I think I went to an Otakon opening ceremonies, and what it pretty much amounted to was the voice of Otakon says, welcome. And then let us show you all our guests. And all the guests come out and say, hello, I'm the guest. And hello, I'm this parade of guests, so you can see them all.
Penny Arcade Expo, meanwhile, the rock music starts. The light starts showing. I feel like I am at a rock concert.
It is fucking epic.
Instead of rockers being brought out on stage, it is Tycho in his goddamn cape and Gabe.
His bald-ass shiny head.
That guy, oh my God. And the keynote, a keynote speech. Why don't anime cons have that? It doesn't have to be like the voice actor who doesn't speak English or Crispin Freeman or anything like that. Just get someone, even tangentially related to the anime industry, who can give a good hour-long talk that is in some way related to the otaku generation. And you know what? Even if people don't go to it right away, the word will spread, because the people who go to this thing, if you make it professional, high quality, you have a good speaker, he gives a good talk, and you make this idea that it is a must-go-to event, that will do more than anything to raise the brow of the anime convention.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like the PAX schedule, right? The problem with the great thing and the sort of not so great thing about the PAX schedule is basically you look at an Anime Con schedule, right? And most people, the vast majority of people are going to that masquerade, right? And the big concert, right? And there's these big mega events that everyone's going to. At PAX, it's just mega event after mega event. It's Keynote, the Gabe and Tycho Q&A, right? The
red versus blue event.
Yeah, the Make a Strip panel, the second Gabe and Tycho Q&A, the Omegathon final round, the Friday concerts, the Saturday concerts. It's just mega event after mega event, boom, 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 and everyone's going to those motherfuckers. You know it.
Now,
and
clearly, this
anime conventions don't have enough mega events.
Well, but at the same time,
it's pretty much masquerade, cosplay, chess, maybe.
Anime cons are too big to have the paradigm of everyone goes to these big events. I mean, and the other problem is, and this is the real issue in regards to all this, the keynote at PAX worked because there was no line at all to get badges. Everyone would be in the con immediately when it opened.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we talk about this? We've said for years that anime cons, pretty much every convention, should mail out the badges. And they gave, every convention we've ever said this to has always had a very reasonable and understandable response. And the response is this. Number one, they're worried about forgery. If we mail out these badges to everyone, people will just copy them and get in for free. Number two, right? It takes a lot of work and a lot of money to mail out the badges. We'd have to actually spend like a whole weekend or maybe even more time putting all these things in envelopes with the addresses and, writing all these names on them and this whole thing, right? And you look at specific situations like, say, I don't know, the Otakon situation, right? Where they have a different badge arts. That means they'd have to let you choose the badge you want beforehand. Are they going to let you write your own name on it? Are they just going to write your name on it for you? It's a whole, some conventions, they want to see your ID to make sure, right? Otherwise, they mail them out, and all this sort of stuff that goes on. And, there's a lot of, they could hire a company to take care of it, but it costs a lot of money. And all those things are pretty understandable. But despite those things, I say there's no excuse not to mail out the badges.
Well, one thing I can say is that we got a series of fantastic emails from actually Jackie, who is the director of registration for Anime Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked in great detail about the rationale for why Anime Boston does not mail them out and all the things they do. And I don't want to, we should do a separate show.
It's one of those situations where someone makes a whole bunch of points and all those points are true and correct, but yet I still think they should do it anyway.
Well, I don't want to read her emails on the air just because we've already gone on forever on this topic, but we'll do a separate show because she made a lot of great points, and I think I agree with absolutely everything she said.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the real core problem with anime conventions, and it's actually a multifaceted and very difficult to solve problem. And to summarize as best I can, the demographic of an anime convention, as opposed to, say, PAX. PAX was late 20-something affluent gamer guys.
Yeah, I mean, there were some early 20-somethings in some high schools, but
and a lot of girls.
Yeah, it was a lot of girls at PAX.
Actually, I would say it was about 55, 45.
Yeah, but PAX skewed older than Otakon.
Not just older, but also just a much more affluent. I mean, people had money at PAX.
Well, and also the people at PAX just were more mature in their acting.
But the demographic skew of anime conventions like Otakon, Katsucon, Anime Boston tends to be teenagers, often on the younger end of the scale, often under 18, who have not traveled on their own much, if at all, in their lives. For many people going to anime conventions, and I've confirmed this by talking to a lot of people at anime conventions, it is their first major trip anywhere without their parents.
Wow.
Or their parents took them and left them at the hotel that their parents got for them and then went off on their own vacation.
And
stuff like
they
that.
don't have a lot of money.
They're often very poor, usually because they're in high school. I didn't have any money in high school. What was I going to do?
Yep.
And all of these factors combined cause so many strange problems that you wouldn't even think about.
It's almost like you can't operate as a convention. You have to operate as like a freaking summer camp because all these, punk kids.
I mean, like one example that really comes up a lot is that these kids don't know how to get hotel rooms. And like I remember it was at an Otakon a few years ago.
You call up a hotel on the telephone, you say, I would like a room, please.
No, let's not get into that. But someone asked seriously at a con feedback session, I think it was at Otakon, it might have been Katsucon. They basically said that their hotel had ripped them off and they wanted the con to fix it because the hotel said one rate, but when they checked out, they charged them something else. And all indications were that this hotel had charged them taxes.
Which is what hotels do.
And they did not realize this.
And also, there's also the other problem on top of that, which is, what does the convention have to do with your hotel room? Convention has nothing to do with your hotel. Why are you asking them?
But it also just in
That's
general,
like going to complain to my work about my rent.
conventions like Otakon and anime, all these anime conventions, have to cater to a lot of needs that they really shouldn't have to. Like the policy of most anime conventions in regards to a lost badge or a, forgot my registration, I show up at the con and I don't have like an ID, any of that stuff is to accommodate the person in any possible way. And most conventions will like give you a new badge or have some sort of policy for that. But
some of them say no badge, tough shit.
Yeah, but many don't.
But the thing, it's not just the badges, though. There are many situations in which it's a fan-run convention. They really care. They're really trying to be as accommodating, as helpful, and as nice as they possibly can be. And they are, and they succeed, and there's something to be said for that. But perhaps they shouldn't be.
Now, I mean, look at a professional event. If I lose my badge, fuck you.
Yeah, if you lose your badge to the New York Comic Con, they're just going to be like, so? It's like losing your ticket to a baseball game.
No, will
Tough
they?
shit.
Will they? Did you look at their policy?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I know if you lose your ticket to a baseball game, you're fucked.
Even the Reed cons are a lot more accommodating than you would think.
Yeah.
But like one of the biggest concerns of mailing badges out that is perfectly legitimate is that these people will lose their badges. And you know what? I hate to say it, but the demographic of anime conventions, this is a concern. I mean, PAX, it's not a concern. They had a line for people who like lost their badge or had problems or whatever. There were like 2 people in that line. Like, no one had problems. Tens of thousands of people had their badges mailed to them with no incidents that caused a problem whatsoever.
None that were noticed in any way or had any visible effect for anyone else.
And the anime convention people who run this stuff point out legitimately that if we mail out the badges, there will be crazy problems. And I do not say that, no, you are wrong, look at PAX. I say, you are right. You will have these problems. I mean, anime conventions, if they mail the badges out, I would wager that a full 10% of people are going to show up without their badge.
And I think that they should do that, and they should just say tough shit. I think that's what they have to do. Because I think even though in the short term you would have a lot of upset people and all these punk kids, I think that A, it'll be a good lesson for those punk kids and they will be better for it, and B, the convention will be better for it. And even though it's a short-term suffering for a long-term gain.
I don't even think necessarily full tough shit. I think you can ease into it because a concern
they just
here
need
is that
some toughness. Any toughness would be better than no toughness.
conventions have gotten more and more accommodating, and as a result, people who go to conventions are more and more expecting all of this kind of extra treatment.
It's a problem. Whenever you're too nice, right? People sort of, the standard of what is, acceptable, you're raising the bar. And so basically there's sort of like this, level of, okay, this is satisfactory and we are going so far above and beyond, right? We're so great. But if you're so great every time, then eventually the bar of satisfactory is raised up into what should just be great. So now if you become a little less great than you were before, suddenly everyone thinks you're being bad, but really you're still 10 times better than everyone else. You were just being extra nice before. You were being unnecessarily nice and people took it for granted. And you can't, you got to make sure that people don't take your extra awesomeness for granted. Now, because that'll bite you.
I don't want to get into all the specific suggestions because obviously a plan to do something about this problem it has to be more than tough shit.
Yeah.
But we don't have time to talk about details. No.
But do you want to talk about the one big thing?
Well, we'll get to that because the other concern, one more idea that comes up from the demographics is that people have no money. So as a result, the volunteering situation is the opposite of what it is.
This is what I wanted to talk about.
Oh, for things like PAX. At PAX and cons like it, the people who run the convention are either professionals or, despite the fact that PAX is a for-profit con, they're still all volunteers. Like all those enforcers are the equivalent of gophers at anime cons. But rather than having people at the convention advertising things like punk kid, no money, volunteer for 20 hours doing the grunt work, and we'll give you a place to stay with like 8 other punk kids.
And a free badge.
Instead, PAX has a waiting list to be considered to be a volunteer for the next PAX.
Yeah, I mean, why are anime cons begging for enforcers? Otakon has more attendees than PAX by a lot because PAX counts turnstile and Otakon counts badges.
Yep.
Otakon has a ton more people. Why does PAX have people lining up and on a waiting list to be a volunteer? And why does Otakon beg people to volunteer? What is wrong with this picture?
And not just Otakon, every anime convention. The first time I ever staffed a con, I was at an early Katsucon, and I was drunk. And I was walking along with Scott Johnson. We were both drunk. And the staffer comes up, and there's like, you two have just been nominated to be blah, blah, blah. And she handed us staff badges and said, if you guys just take care of this hallway and keep people from sitting on the floor for an hour, you've got staff badges.
No.
And we were like, okay, thanks. But there's so many reasons for this, because the people who go to cons like PAX are people like us for the most part, or who, we go to Otakon for all these years, and just showing up as an attendee in and of itself doesn't do a lot for us anymore. But being volunteers, being staff, helping out, doing panels, that is so much fun that's why we'll do it for free forever. We love it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to get people who want to volunteer and can afford to take time off work and just go to this convention with very little compensation and do it. But yet, at con like PAX, everyone can afford to go anyway, and they actually enjoy volunteering, so it's a solved problem.
Well, I think one major aspect, of the thing is that, at the anime convention, right, you got to look at the motivating factor for volunteering, right? It's like, do you ever hear the story about how, they go to the lawyers and they say, lawyers, these old people really need some legal help. Will you help them for a discounted rate? And all the lawyers go, no, no, no. But they go to the same lawyers and they say, lawyers, these old people really need your help. Will you help them for free? Oh, yes, we'd love to help them for free. Yes, oh, of course, we're so giving and charitable, right? And it's a psychological thing that's pretty well understood, relatively, as any psychological thing can be understood, in that when you enter the money into the equation, you think with a different part of your brain that makes a financial calculation. But by not mentioning the money, just saying, will you help them out for free, the sort of charity goodwill part of the brain comes into action, which is separate, and so you'll do it. The incentive to volunteer at an anime convention, right? The by fans for fans anime convention, right, is free badge. So the money part of your brain is coming into it, and what you really want is to enjoy the con. So you're going to, right, do the minimal amount of work you can to get that freaking badge because you just want to run off and enjoy the con, right? At the professional con, where everyone there is a hired hand, no volunteers really, right? You're making the same money calculation, but you're saying, man, I am getting paid. This is my job, and they do work because it's their job, and they do it just like you do your job if you have a job, right? At PAX, they don't call you a gopher or a volunteer. They call you an enforcer. And if you think that doesn't have a psychological difference, I don't know what you're thinking. They call you an enforcer. It's a position of respect, and people look up to you, and you feel that you're important. You feel you have a duty to something you actually actively care about a great deal. You want to do a good job. You are there not thinking about money, not thinking about trying to get a free badge. You're thinking about, I'm here, I want to do this, I'm an enforcer. You're taking it seriously. You are respected and thanked, and you are grateful just even to be able to be an enforcer, and you do the best possible job you can because you want to.
What this does, and
it's the same as people working on open source software. The same mentality as enforcers.
But one of the biggest problems cons have, anime cons, even when they get volunteers, the volunteers don't know crap. I mean, 90% of anime conventions, if you ask an average staffer any question, they will not have the answer.
Yeah, you need to find the specialized staffer for your question.
I mean, even the cons we like, I'll find a staffer and be like, hey, where's the video room? And they don't know. They just kind of and they just kind of wait for me to go away. And this is at every anime convention. I make a point of asking
Unless
questions.
you go to the information booth. They know everything.
Well, at some cons.
At some
Otakon's info booth is pretty badass.
Yeah.
Katsucon's was not so much 2 years ago.
Anime Boston's was good.
Anime Boston's was good.
All right.
But the first staffer we met had no idea where anything was.
Yeah, they couldn't answer our question.
But with the enforcer mentality, you don't have to worry about training these people. You know, the AnimeCon staffers always point out that it's basically impossible to train these kids, especially with the limited resources and the short amount of time. PAX enforcers, or people treated that way, like the Video Katsu staff, they learn it on their own. They care, and they make sure that they can answer all these questions because they're so dedicated to the con. They care, so they learn. You don't have to spend any resources teaching them. They already know.
Yep. Everyone who's in, and it's like you look at other cons, right? And it's not just the naming of it, right? You look at, say, Otakon, right? They've got Gopher, they got, totally committed Gopher, the volunteer, staff, Uber staff, right?
It's this stupid hierarchical system where if you want to be a staffer, I asked several conventions way back before we even did Geeknights, like, hey, I have a ton of experience. I was the president of the biggest anime club in the country for a while. I got all my shit together. I've experienced staffing conventions, other conventions. Here's my gigantic resume of related stuff. I would love to join the staff and help you out. And the answer was universally, well, you can be a gopher to start, and then if you're good at that, you can work your way up the ladder. To which I said, you know what? No.
At PAX, everyone's an enforcer. End of story. Different enforcers have different jobs. You know, one guy might be in charge of a panel room here. One guy might be in charge of all the panel rooms. One guy might be in charge of a video game room, right? So obviously some people have responsibilities that are larger than others, but everyone is just enforcer. You are an enforcer equal to the other enforcers. And, so no one has like a higher authority or a lower authority, except I guess, Robert Koo or whoever, right?
Yeah.
But, and I guess you might have an enforcer you report to and such, but you're not, there's no ranking. There's none of this psychological difference in respect or any duty or anything like that. It's an enforcer is an enforcer is an enforcer. You are the real deal.
Well, part of this like hierarchy that emerges in a lot of anime conventions, especially the smaller ones, is that the high-level staff tend to be a very close-knit clique of people.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem to not want to let other people eventually replace them or join this inner circle.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
This isn't really as much of a problem with a lot of the bigger cons, but I've seen many unnamed anime conventions where they basically force new people to do the crap jobs, even if they could be doing much more better work for the con, solely because they want to hold on to their little bit of extra special staff power.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing, right? Is you look at the anime con with the hierarchical arrangement, right? Power structure. And there's a community of the people at the top. They're possibly, hopefully, tight-knit and all together, right? But all the gophers and stuff are all just these individual laborers, basically. At PAX, all of the enforcers, all of them are all in this one community together. They're all with each other on this one giant team. Everyone is heavily involved in communication, in the forums, on the newsletter, talking to everyone else. It's not just a few people at the top sending the orders down from on high. It's a big community. And you really need the big staff community, not the little staff community that rules over, the minions.
Now, you might be saying, but Rim Scott, didn't you just say the demographics are mutually exclusive and there's no way to do this? Why are you even talking? Here's how I think we can pull this off pretty readily. One, obviously change the name of it. Maybe not Enforcer. That's obviously taken, but get rid of this whole, the current volunteer system and replace it with a more flat structure. And do all the psychological stuff.
I mean, you can even get the name staff. People like staff gives people a really good feeling.
But more importantly,
staff, yeah.
There is a lot of hope because just in this last year, I've seen this gigantic reversal in the demographics. I think this year, for the first time in like 6 years, the average age of AnimeCon goers is going to go up.
Well, I think because
Oh,
anime
well-
is not on television, you're not getting the new fans. So the only people still coming are the people who are fans, the Naruto people, right?
because think
but
about
the
it.
Naruto people are getting older. So the only, it's them still coming and still coming.
But think about it,
and still coming.
Say 1 year you have 100 new people who come to Otakon because they watched Dragon Ball Z on TV. The next year, 90 of those come back because they remembered they had a good time. The next year, 60 of them come back, but now they've moved on to all this other anime. And the next year, 40 come back, and those 40 will come back for the rest of their lives. And they're the ones who know the names of directors at this point.
Yep.
But so anime had this gigantic surge in popularity in the US. So every year, I mean, Otakon, like the growth of Otakon was crazy to the point that the fact that Otakon dealt with, these 8,000 person per year leaps is amazing to me. Like, I still cannot. It is so cool that Otakon was able to handle that without missing a beat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even a con I might have been running probably would have collapsed under that load.
It's a big load.
It is. But now anime, the surge kind of died and the growth is dropping off, and we're starting to see the shift go back toward the self-described anime fans come back, and there aren't as many newer fans. And I think in a couple more years, anime cons are going to be at this steady state again. I think Otakon will probably cap out around 30,000-ish people. But I think the age is going to go up. I think the income's going to go up. And I think they will be able to get away with being much more selective in their staffing. But at the same time, we'll be able to get more total staffers.
Mm-hmm. And
But
better staffers.
You still have to do...
One good staffer is worth 5 crappy ones.
You still have to do all of the psychological stuff. You still have to get rid of the, grab gophers at the con mentality. You have to make people apply to be a staffer.
Mm-hmm. I think another problem though is that it's sort of unique to PAX is that PAX has this penny arcade community, and then it is a convention on top of that. These other conventions, Otakon, Anime Boston, etc., right, are just all they are is a convention. They aren't on top of an existing thing.
Well,
so I think what they really need to do a lot of work on, right, is they need to do a lot of work in building the community outside of the rest of the year when the convention isn't going on.
now a lot of them try. I mean,
They try, but they don't try
all
hard
of these
enough.
cons have the active forum communities.
They
but
do.
The forum community of every con we've ever been to is not in any way representative of the people who show up to the con at all.
And I think, all these conventions are friendly with each other. They all have booths at each other's conventions and such and such and such, right? I think they would do well to not partner up actually in a business sense, because you don't want to have Otakon suffer because some other convention screwed up big
that was
time.
basically any con Otakon joined with would just cause Otakon.
But they should create one anime convention community place,
one that
on
is sanctioned
the internet.
but it's the official one for
Maybe even get the Anime News Network in on there, and that should be the place that sort of holds everything together, and then off of that is what you can create the same sort of arrangement where there is the community which spawns the conventions out from it.
Now, I don't know which cons will do or try to do or tell us why we can't do any of the things we just talked about, but one thing I can say in regards to the showing rooms, any con that pays for our hotel and travel, we've got enough of our own staff to run that for you.
Yes. Anything that we have suggested, if you say, oh, it can't be done, well, we will do it. We are the put up. So don't come and tell us why it can't be done, because we will do it, and then you're in trouble.
And if you don't believe us, seriously, ask Katsucon or Kineticon. I mean, we have put up anything that any con has ever challenged us to do, not counting crazy conventions.
Do 2 panels at once. Sorry. That's not going to happen.
Well, I'm not going to name the con, but there is a con that every year asks us to come and basically will not accommodate anything we need, and simultaneously will make ludicrous demands of us. We don't go as a result.
Yeah.
But like Otakon, we can bring enough staff to personally do most of the stuff we talked about.
Yep.
Like, you won't even need any people. Just give us the authority, and we've got like 20 staff we can bring. They'll be ready to go. We'll have everything ready like 6 months before the con. I think we're done. We've gone on way too long here.
All right. Well, there's a lot to say about this.
There was a lot to say, and I still have more to say, but we'll do a separate show about the mailing out badges.
No, yet another show?
Well, no, I want to get some of these staffers who have emailed me and have an actual discussion with them on the air.
Oh, shit.
Later, way later, after con season. Because, good God, we have a lot to do before Otakon and Kineticon. This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geek Nights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.